rusty, dusty, and get on, get on, get on the road to victory and buy another bond today.
The loneliest road to victory was the Italian road. Since D-Day, Alexander's armies had been a legion of forgotten men. Moving with that legion were 2 Canadian divisions and an armored brigade. In late August, they re-entered the line on the Adriatic. The invasion of southern France had drained men from Alexander's campaign, and packed into the top of the Italian boot were 28 enemy divisions. They were ranged now along the deep and deadly Gothic line, and the Canadian looked again into the hard, experienced eyes of the German paratrooper. The Canadians, British, Americans punched through the Gothic line. Then more Germans, more rivers, more hills. In the grimmest month of the Italian campaign, the Canadians fought to San Fortunato at a cost of 4,100 casualties. On the eve of that victory, the weather broke. The German was now further fortified by mud and water. The dispirited, forgotten soldier of Italy sang his bittersweet lament.
We fought into a Jira, holiday with pay. The Jerrys brought the bands out to greet us on the way. Showed us the sights and gave us tea. We all sang songs, the beer was free. We are the D-Day Dodgers in sunny Italy. The Moro and Ortona were taken in our stride. We didn't really fight there, we went just for the ride. Sleeping till noon and playing games, we live in Rome with lots of dames. We are the D-Day Dodgers in sunny Italy.
In all, 18 angry rivers to cross. Behind each one, the German would kill, and then retreat to kill again. But the Canadians kept coming. The world was reminded of these gallant men when one of their number, Private Smoky Smith of BC, left Buckingham Palace with a Victoria Cross for valor. But most of the heroes were obscure on the plains of Lombardy and in the Apennines. In February of 1945, the long-awaited order came. The Canadians were leaving Italy. Stripped of insignia, veiled in secrecy, the Canadians moved across the boot to Leghorn and the sea. 90,000 had been there. 20,000 had been wounded. 5,000 would not leave at all, for they lay dead in Italy. They had come 20 months before on a stormy night off Sicily. They left in the sun of the Côte d'Azur. From Marseille, they headed north through France. They were on their way to fight the last weeks of the war with their fellow Canadians. First, they would regroup, while the Canadian veterans in North Europe left their static winter line to fight a terrible battle. The Germans were to be cleared to the Rhine. The Canadians would launch the first assault. As in Normandy, they would engage a great part of the German army and be the hinge on which would swing Bradley's Americans. For this operation, Crear's Canadian Army would be but a quarter Canadian. Montgomery would augment it to a strength of 400,000 men with British troops. The Germans had blown their bridges, and the first task went to the engineers. As the rivers were spanned, the troops began to concentrate. Dikes had been blown, spring thaws were coming. They used 1,800 tons of bridging and built 100 miles of road. Into the Nijmegen salient moved the hard, sardonic survivors of other battles. The greatest force ever commanded by a Canadian was now marshaled in the lower Rhineland. The generals were ready. Now, each of their men must reach deep again for his own private strength. The great concentration could not long be concealed. The operation would begin February 8th, regardless of weather. There were 35,000 vehicles, 1.5 million gallons of gas, and 1,000 aircraft. The town of Cleves, where Henry VIII had got an ugly wife, and the nearby Riechwald forest were soon bright with fire. At daybreak, 1,000 guns poked into the yellow sky. After 2.5 hours, ceasefire. For 10 silent, uncanny minutes, the spotters worked, the guns cooled, the shells were readied for the last great barrage. At 10:30 a.m., the 2nd Canadian Division was rolling into the forest. In 6 hours, they had easily taken their first objective. While the British battered forward on their right, the Canadian 3rd was preparing to outflank the enemy through the flooded fields and become forever the water rats. These were the men from majestic D-Day, now rough and vulgar and superb.